Committee members and committee chairs, thank you so much for having me here. My name is Wes Moore, and I have spent much of my adult life fighting for things that I believe in. I have spent time as a U.S. Army captain. I've spent time as a social impact startup founder here in the state of Maryland. And I've been involved in the philanthropic sector, where I currently lead one of the largest anti-poverty nonprofits in the entire country. I also know that the reason I'm lending my voice to this issue here today is because if you look at many of the indicators that I faced as a child, there's not many reasons I should be here. And education is a core part of why I'm sitting in front of you here today. So I sit here today as a Marylander. This is the state that I was born in. This is a state that I will forever call home. This is also the state that my wife and I, who's sitting back there, have chosen to raise our children in. And in Maryland, we like to tout how our education system ranks nationally. And for some kids in some schools, they are fortunate enough to have world-class opportunities at world-class institutions. Yet the reality is we do live in a state right now where only 40% of students are able to pass a 10th grade English test and an Algebra 1 test, deeming them college or career ready. So when I hear people talk about how good Maryland schools are, my question back is, which schools? And for which kids? The dedicated experts here at Kirwan have laid out a data-driven, creative, and equitable vision, highlighting the fact that our children are not our burdens to figure out. They are our blessings. And so understanding and highlighting the fact that we do need universal pre-K in this state. Highlighting the fact that we do need to dramatically improve compensation and supports for our educators and our teachers. Highlighting the fact that we do need to improve our college readiness, and we do need to attack the clear inequities of race and class that exist within our school system. So, as we do that, it's also important that the conversation around it and around how we fund it must be driven by these values as well. So I'm here to ask you as the leaders of our state to lead on all aspects of the commission, both the policy recommendations, but also that we place an equity lens on the funding. I'm asking that you not tell our most vulnerable and our most systemically underserved communities to pay for their own poverty. That every jurisdiction must have skin in the game. But communities with the greatest need for these reforms are being asked to pay the most to get services desperately needed in every school and in every community, and that's not fair.
Thank you.
Thank you all. There's a question. Senator Ellis.
So this question is directed to Mr. Wes Moore. Thank you for your leadership and all that you do.
Thank you.
And my question is, so could you be specific as far as which communities you believe will be asked to come up with too much?
Specifically, oftentimes, as communities that have been asked to come up with most in the first place. So when we're looking at how formulas are laid out, we look at the fact that we have repeatedly underfunded specific jurisdictions, and oftentimes we're talking about jurisdictions that are the highest poverty jurisdictions, Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and Prince George's County. But I also know that as we're having these conversations about how we're going to add amendments to this, and we think about this conversation about which students and which jurisdictions are we talking about, which ones have to be reflected, which ones have to have adjustments that are put towards that. Repeatedly, it comes back to this idea, and frankly, a quote that Dr. King talked about, where he said that our budgets are our moral documents. And so when we're looking at how we're going to allocate resources, what we're going to expect from those specific resources, it's really highlighting and understanding the fact that when we're talking about students that represent various jurisdictions within the state of Maryland, they're all still fundamentally our students. The challenges that they will face, the opportunities that they will present, they're still fundamentally ours. And so as we're thinking about that, and which jurisdictions, again, repeatedly are being asked to come up and make up for excess, the question then really comes back to the larger community about which ones are we willing to castigate and why, which ones are we willing to condemn and why.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, panel. Thank you. While we're bringing up Ms. Peggy Brookins, President of the National Board of Professional Teaching Standards, the next panel will be Sydney Katz, Shebra Evans, Monica McKnight, and Brandon Scott. They'll be followed by Dr. Golson and Dr. Thornton, who will be followed by Yuvola Peters.